Good evening, Broncos country. We are live. But before we get started with tonight's discussion, we want to make sure we have all of our platforms included. So let's take a minute for the stream to kind of breathe. All right, and it looks like we are good. Welcoming everyone to another episode of the Orange and Blue View. I am your host, Ron White. On that side of me, you know him, you love him as Dylan Vaughn Arts. Dylan, how are you doing today on this Saturday, my man?
Doing great. Happy to be back on the pod. I know it's been pretty sporadic recently, and that's not going to change throughout this month. There'll be a couple times I'll be gone, but happy to be here tonight. It's hot here in California, about 102, so we're sweating it out, but I'm here for you guys, so that's all that matters.
Likewise, it's hot where I am as well. I'm actually in South Carolina this weekend. So it's hot in Georgia, it's hot in South Carolina, it's hot all over the southeast. But it's good to be here with you guys, especially on this college football Saturday. It was great to see Dylan and I. You guys, you were just talking in the room. An Alabama loss with the Georgia win. That's that's always good. So yeah, good day for college football as well. At least so far, so good. So before we get started with tonight's discussion, let's see who all we have joining us tonight. Just want to say hello to a few people here in the chat. We'll start with David McElrath coming in. Thank you, David. You know we love to see you in the chat, my guy. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country. Hashtag 10 and 7. Hashtag let's go Bo. Yes, let's go Bo." I love that hashtag, and I'm glad that you still feel optimistic about that record prediction. The way the Broncos have been playing. If they can if they can still find that consistency in the running game, Dylan, with how this defense is playing, and Bo can, still learn as he goes, I think that record is not out of the realm of the possible. But David, it's so good to see you again, and I'm glad again that you're being optimistic with that score prediction. Thank you, my guy.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, if this defense keeps up like it's going, they'll be in every game. So the offense has got to catch up, and hopefully they do, especially Bo growing incrementally.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And then we have a new name, at least for me, David Eartham coming in. Thank you, David. We appreciate it, my guy. It says, "Greetings to all from Aurora, Colorado. I am so looking forward to seeing this winning game." Yes, David, again, thank you for coming in. Um, and yeah, I think we all are looking forward to seeing, you know, pretty much, well, obviously the defense, but just how this offense looks. And this is a prime opportunity, Dylan, especially with what's going on with the Raiders. I feel as though it's always when the Broncos play the Raiders, there's some Raiders drama going on. Obviously there's the Devonte Adams uh, trade speculation. I know there's issues with Pierce as well. So there's always something going on as far as when the Denver Broncos play the Las Vegas Raiders. But I think the versions of each team, how the Raiders without a Devonte Adams playing, and with some of the defensive metrics that the Raiders have, at least so far this season, which I know previous pods have probably got into, but we can briefly touch on that. This will be a prime example for the Broncos offense to be consistent, for that running game to get going consistently. And also, you may see a touchdown pass or two from Bo Nix. So this is a perfect opportunity to do so. But again, that's all we want, David. We want to see winning football from the Denver Broncos. Thanks again for coming in, my guy.
Yeah, winning football is the name of the game, and Bo Nix learning, and we're going to look good winning, I think, in those throwbacks everyone's
Yes.
pretty excited about, and I know we are too. hey, look good, play good, and I think that's going to be the case tomorrow.
Yes, yes, for sure. And we got Mike S coming in. Thank you, Mike. Says, "What's up, Dylan, Ron, and Broncos country? What's up with you, Mike? We are doing well, and hopefully you are also. Thank you for coming in, my guy, as always." And then we got DB94 coming in with a super chat. Thank you. He says, "It's time for a Bo Nix breakout game. Hashtag Bo leave. Hashtag Knicks for six. Hashtag 10-7." I like these 10-7 predictions, Dylan. They're coming in frequently here. So I'm so glad you guys are again optimistic with the direction that the Broncos are going right now, and again that record's not too far out of the realm of the possible. Now, speaking of breakout, Dylan, I kind of want to get your thoughts. Do you think that with this game again? Kind of to what I just alluded to a few minutes ago, with how the Raiders look as a team, on offense, defense, special teams. Is this the breakout game again? Not only for Bo Nix, but just really for the Broncos. I think we know that the defense is going to come ready, based on what the level that we've seen them play at so far this year. But can Bo Nix start to kind of put drives together, get that passing game going, get a few tutties? Do you see the opportunity there for this Week 5 matchup?
Yeah, it's definitely possible, and I think the question is Sean Payton's game plan going to allow for that to happen?
Yeah, that's
We kind of seem to revert back to a lot of short throws, stuff behind the line of scrimmage, and when a team knows you're going to do that, obviously the Jets are a very good defense, but when a team knows you're going to do that, okay, we can just come up and tackle. We're not worried about Bo Nix testing deep, especially the rain did play a factor as well. But in a game like this, Denver needs to test that secondary. I know Nate Hobbs is a decent corner. I don't want to say he's great. I think he's a solid corner, and then you have Jack Jones, but they're largely inconsistent. And although Denver's weapons aren't necessarily game breakers at all, but I feel Cortland Sutton should have a bigger game. Maybe we get some more usage out of Troy Franklin and his speed. We've seen him a little more, even with Vele healthy. It seems like they've been trying to use Franklin a little more. So I think this is the game to test the middle to deep passing game, and hopefully they do so, because I'm sick of seeing these swing passes, these screens. It's like they work to a point, but when that's all you're throwing, you're not testing your rookie quarterback, and you're not seeing what you can get out of him game to game.
Yes, I'm in agreement with you. I think this again. This is just a perfect game. To I guess more of a get right game. And I know the Broncos are coming off a 2-game winning streak, but get right when it comes to the offense. I think there's going to be times and opportunities there where the Broncos can definitely get the running game going. And you saw the running game start to flourish there in that second half with the Jets. Pookie started to look, kind of how we envisioned him to look, kind of going back to shades of his rookie year. With McLaughlin, and I believe, with Watson, he probably has some touches as well. I think this running game, needs to be prioritized as well with this. But I'm with you in the sense that, these corners, Jacorian Bennett, Jack Jones, I mean, they don't put any fear in anyone's eyes. I think this is where the Broncos, Sean Payton, Bo Nix, they need to also take a lot of deep shots. Take deep shots, get Troy Franklin more involved. Again, I like that he's starting to become a little bit more involved, but get him more involved, especially with the deep ball. Mims as well. And, this would be nice to kind of use him too.
Mm-hmm.
I expect Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds to kind of have their catches, but I'm looking for more of the verticality and the speed. I think this is where Sean Payton and Bo Nix can really kind of unleash that and get those specific types of quick twitch long, deep ball guys involved. All right. And speaking of becoming involved, this episode is brought to you by Manscaped. So Manscaped is the global leader in men's lifestyle and grooming. So make sure you get Manscaped involved in your grooming regimen. Every man knows the unbeatable feeling of a fresh barbershop shave. Now, what if I told you that you no longer have to wait weeks or even months between appointments to experience it?
Introducing Manscaped's newest innovation, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver, the game-changing tool that brings the luxury of a professional shave right into your home. Whether you're after the daily silky smooth finish or prefer to maintain the rugged 5 o'clock shadow, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver is your go-to precision and style. Head to manscaped.com and join over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using code HUDDLE for 20% off plus free shipping.
Get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code HUDDLE at manscaped.com. Again, that's 20% off plus free shipping with the code HUDDLE at manscaped.com. All righty. Let's see who else we have in the chat here. Um, got Monica Raposo coming in. Thank you, Monica. It says, hey guys, let's keep these wins consistent. Defense and offense will show up, and I see a Denver win 27-14. Okay. Wow. So pretty good solid scoring there from Denver. I like it, Monica. I like it, Monica. And yeah, you're right on with keeping the wins consistent. And again, Monica, I'm not so concerned about the defense. I think, 4 games into the season, we can all say that this defense is elite. And I know, Dylan, some have started to do this, and I'm going to do it right now. Vance Joseph, I'm sorry. I apologize. I know, kind of before tonight, I've kind of been one of those that have still been hesitant. But I think, what that defense did last week to stifle Aaron Rodgers and that Jets offense was incredible, Dylan. Just all those blitzes. I like the safety blitz with PJ Locke near the end. It had Aaron Rodgers just confused and flustered all game. And so, those pressure packages, you're starting to see how that impacts a lot of these opposing offenses. And, it's working. And if Monica, if that offense can really start to put together some drives, again, it was great to see that running game kind of kick off in that second half. Just keep building upon that. With Bo Nix still trying to learn and figure out, I think you'll start to see more wins. And I know Sean Payton mentioned that this month is an important month. October is a very important month here for football. So the next slate of games are quite winnable. Obviously, the Raiders, the Chargers, I believe it's the Panthers and the Saints as well within that stretch. So that schedule is very promising, and the Broncos can definitely lock up a few victories there in the upcoming months. So.
Yeah, this defense should have a big game, especially considering Devonte Adams isn't going to play. You mentioned at the top of the show all the drama that's happening with him, and where is he going to get traded? Typical Raiders stuff. No one wants to stay there. But if the Broncos defense and VJ, and yes, VJ, very sorry for bad mouthing you all off season and during last season too. If they can stop Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, they could definitely stop I don't actually, is Zamir White even playing? I know.
I think he's out.
He's out. Okay, so I think it's Alexander Madison is going to be getting the bulk of the carries. You can stop them against this absolutely beat up Raiders offensive line. I think they're going to be sitting pretty, especially in the run game. And then the pass game, I like Jacoby Myers. He's a really good number 2. And Trey Tucker's got some sneaky speed, but I'm not overly concerned, especially with the time the Broncos have the sack. I believe it was, or to get a pressure is 2.6 seconds, and you have Minshew holding the ball at an average of 2.7 seconds. So, and that's with a beat up offensive line. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I think the defense is definitely going to be dominant. It's the offense that we want to see a lot more from, and I think they can string together a few touchdown drives, hopefully some more passing touchdowns from Nix.
Yes. Yeah, definitely more passing touchdowns from Nix. And again, the only receiving threat that scares me for the Raiders is Brock Bowers.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's still a rookie, guys, but he's having a phenomenal season so far as a rookie. And Dylan, that's one of the bugaboos for the Broncos is tight ends. Now again, they've done well to start off the season against them. They're not really been much of a factor given some of those packages that Vance has dialed up. So I would like to kind of see that unfold here against the Raiders as well. But yeah, Jacoby Myers is okay. I'm not too scared of him. I like what I see from Trey Tucker. You're absolutely right. He's a little underrated, at least from what I've seen. But Brock Bowers for sure is the one that really kind of scares me if I'm a defense. And I know Sean Payton had high praise for Brock Bowers as well. So it should be interesting. But again, thank you, Monica, for coming in. We appreciate that. Let's see who else we have coming in. String Guy coming in. Thank you, String Guy. Says, hi, all. Looks like Dylan is chilling. But will the Broncos be thrilling against the Raiders? I see this game as a must-win. I'm hoping to see good running game and a breakout game by Nix. Dylan, I'll let you take this one over. I guess besides the chilling part, what do you see? Do you see this as a must-win for Denver?
Yeah, and obviously it would be nice to, win 3 out of 3 the past 3 weeks. But we haven't beaten the Raiders since they became the Las Vegas Raiders. We have not beaten the Vegas Raiders. Just Oakland was the last time. And I think it's a must-win in that sense. The snap that winning streak they have against us, I believe it's 8 in a row so far. I think that does get snapped, and I think the run game will be a big key to that. You saw once they started pulling guards in that second half, you started seeing the run game working, and Devonte, instead of trying to, this might sound funny, but it's like think or don't think, just act. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to follow the guard, and wherever he's going, I'm going, instead of trying to cut back and run into his line. And the biggest thing, it seemed like he had a lot more confidence, and maybe that's what was stunting him. Maybe he just wasn't fully confident in his knee, and hey, maybe I can't do this anymore. Am I going to hurt myself again? We saw that second half. He looked like a freight train again, and that's what we want to see. Getting freaking 8 yards, then 10 yards, then 8 yards again, something like that. And that's going to be a big key against this Raiders defense, especially. It'll help open up that pass game that we've been craving.
Yeah, you saw, and I'll get to your point here, String Guy, here about the must win. But going back to Devonte, you're right. You obviously the offensive line did a great job, but you also saw him, not second guessing himself. Like once he saw that cut, he just went go, and he was able to bust through, talking 7, 8, 9 yards a carry. Sometimes even getting 10 plus. So if you can see that, if that can continue in this game, I think that'll set this running attack up quite well. I mean, you also saw some good runs from McLaughlin too.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if they can just remain consistent there, again, seeing that vision continue to improve from that injury for Devonte, I think that'll help. Now, String Guy, Must win. Yes, I think it's must win for two reasons, and of course they both of them have to do with it's a divisional game. You have to. Well, Dylan, my first point is what you just said. You have to snap this losing streak. This is an horrendous losing streak against the Raiders. Like you haven't beaten the Raiders in 4 years. Like, that's ridiculous. Um, and so that has to end. The Raiders, have been in some aspects worse than the Broncos. So it's like you haven't beaten the Raiders in 8 years. And also you want to. I see this as a must win because you're kind of now starting to get into the meat of the schedule, which is your divisional games. And I think those, in my mind, Dylan, those always count more. Like they count double for me. So if you can stack up wins against the Raiders, if you can stack up a win against the Chargers in the following week, I think that also kind of takes this team a long way, for if the Broncos continue to win even after those games, if the Chiefs start to falter, maybe setting them up for, you know, talks of maybe leading the division. So I think it's very important in those aspects, string guy. Now that you're starting, the division slate, it's even more crucial to be as best as you can when it comes to that division record. Also, to your point on the good running game and the breakout game by Knicks, yeah. Again, I just alluded to the run, but the breakout game for Knicks for sure. I would like to see, Knicks continuing to improve. We see, I know last week was tough, in the weather, the elements. I know it was a little difficult, but if he can build upon what we saw in that Tampa Bay game, some of the decision making, being a little bit more accurate. I do see sometimes, Dylan, that there's still a little bit of inaccuracies in this game, but again, if he can just continue to build upon that, I think you'll see maybe a multi-touchdown game from Knicks tomorrow. But yeah, I'm right there in the with you there, string guy. All right, and then we have, and then thank you guys, string guy, for coming in. Pro 16K, this is Bo's time. Yes, yes, it is. It's Bo's time and the running game time as well. Again, it's both of their time there, Pro 16K. But again, thank you for coming in with that. We appreciate it. All right, let's see who else we have here in the chat. Let me see here. Look at here, guys. Oh, Pro 16K also coming in. Thank you. Says Denver should win 3 out of 4 of the next 4 games. Yeah. So yeah, Pro 16K. If they can go, 75%. I think that's good. And again, these games are very winnable. I mean, we're talking as I mentioned, the Raiders, the Chargers. Then I think it's the Saints, then the Panthers. Am I correct in that, Dylan?
That sounds
to be
right,
honest.
yeah.
Okay, and I think that Saints one is that Thursday night game, October 17th in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Pro 16K, 3 out of 4 wins is definitely plausible. Again, as we were talking about the Raiders, I don't see much difficulty there. The Chargers don't scare me. They have a good running attack, but I think Denver's defense have proved that they can handle a good rushing offense. And then the Saints may be a bit of a challenge, but we've seen them kind of struggle the past few weeks as well. And then we already know what the Panthers are. So, yeah, I think to your point, I think 3 out of 4 is definitely possible. Denver Broncos can definitely go on a little bit of a run.
Yeah, and with the Chargers too, you got to keep into consideration that Justin Herbert's been pretty banged up.
Yeah.
So we've been able to shut down a tough run game last week with the Jets, and Obviously, J.K. Dobbins is doing his thing. There's also, I believe, Joe Alt's banged up as well.
Okay.
We'll see. I mean, obviously, there's another week in between, but it's going to be something to monitor. And with Herbert being hurt, and then you go to, like you mentioned, the Saints. That's a tough defense. I could see that being another low-scoring game. The Panthers, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, their defense is pretty suspect, but Andy Dalton, he started out hot, and then it's like, okay, we remember who he is. He's leveling back out to what he's been in the past. So I think 3 out of 4 is definitely possible. It's just I think it's going to be mostly on the Broncos offense to continue building that cohesion, that synergy, and coming together as an offense and just trying to do some new things out there. Let's get some speed out there. Like we talked about earlier with Franklin and Mims. Like, you drafted these guys to be the speed element of your offense. Use them like you're going to do that. Let's not just use them for, be gunners or kick returners. Like, let's use these guys.
Yeah. And again, it's good to see Franklin out there, because I was even concerned at one point that Franklin wasn't going to play at all. But it's good to see him, at least with some of the end arounds and things of that nature that they're kind of using him. But I would like to see him just go deep, vertical, a few times. And, hopefully he and Knicks can, catch lightning in a bottle, with some of those deep passes, those deep shots at times. But again, thank you, Pro 16K. I would say, Dylan, the game that Saints game is going to be a challenge, just because of that familiarity. Dennis Allen already knows John Payton's scheme. Insert rookie quarterback there, Bo Nix. Yeah, I think that one might be more of a struggle, for sure. Not to say the Broncos can't come out of New Orleans with the win, but I think that's the only one I see as a bit of a challenge within the next 4-game slate. But we'll see what happens there. Again, thank you for 16K for coming in. I wanted to grab, I think it was Samantha came in. I think she had a question. Thanks, Samantha. McCurdy coming in. Sammy says, since Adams is requesting a trade, does that mean he's not playing? Well, I think it's because he had something with his hamstring, I believe, correct? I think he had
and he
something with his hamstring.
He hasn't practiced.
He hasn't practiced
Friday,
based
Thursday,
on that.
Wednesday, yeah.
Right, because he was injured. Now I think there's a lot more to that injury. Now he was injured. Now it seems as though that turns into he just doesn't want to be there. I heard rumblings of he and Antonio Pierce are not in communication. And so I think all of that's factoring into, him not playing for Sunday. But I think all this kind of rooted from the fact that he wasn't playing because that hamstring. And again, the hamstring might be okay now, but I think a lot of this collectively is leading to him not playing, because I think it's understood that he's on that trading block.
Yeah, and not to mention hamstring injuries, we know those can be nagging. Ask Greg Dulcich. It's not something you want to aggravate before you, whether it's Adams himself, he doesn't want to aggravate, and the Raiders don't want him to. They want to get some real return in a trade. And if you trade him when he's injured, they're not probably going to get as much, even though he is Devonte Adams. But like you mentioned, he's not going to be in this game. That I was hoping to see a PS2 and Devontae matchup. Obviously makes things easier for the Broncos, but you still want to see that matchup. That's marquee in terms of wide receiver and cornerback matchups.
Yes, that's must-see TV. That's must-see TV. But yeah, we won't see, unfortunately, this time around. Oh well, we'll see. We'll see a PS2 and Jacoby Myers matchup was a little bit underwhelming, but it's always good to see PS2 play football. All right. And again, thank you, Sammy, for coming in with that question. Just for clarification for everyone, that's great. Thank you again. All right. Let's see. So, Dylan, let's get into, maybe just touch on some of the keys to victory. I know we talked about obviously some things, right? Running, the running game. There'll be opportunities for passing, but maybe some keys to victory and some matchups that you're looking forward to seeing. So, who do you have there at the top of mind there as far as some matchups for keys to victory?
As far as matchups, I didn't have a specific one for this, but you mentioned his name earlier, and the Broncos, the Raiders' top weapon is probably going to be Brock Bowers. So I have the Broncos' secondary versus Brock Bowers. I don't think you can leave a linebacker on him. I think you have to put a safety or a corner on him. Very dynamic playmaker. Obviously, you watched him plenty when he was at Georgia, and it was heartbreaking for you to see him go to the Raiders one pick later. But yeah, he's a guy who can stretch the field. He's got great hands. And as we know, the Broncos have had trouble with with defending tight ends, whether it be Travis Kelce, and now hopefully the same will be said for Brock Bowers.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. It's that tight end, man. That the opposing team's tight end is again what the Broncos struggle with. But I think with Devonte Adams not playing, he has more of a focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it now does serve well that the Broncos will try to game plan for him. Because again, think about it. You already have Jacoby Myers and side taken care of with PS2. It's just a matter of, getting safety and maybe some linebacker help there as well at times, depending on the package that you put out there to deal with Brock Bowers. But man, Brock Bowers is he's such a great athlete. Just great run after the catch. Just can catch the ball with ease. A more than capable blocker. You're right. I did see so much Georgia film on him, and it's so good to kind of, although it's for the team that's playing, that's the rival of the Broncos, but it's so good to see him, doing well in the NFL at least to start. So, I'm going to say Max Crosby. And now, before I get into this, just for everyone on the chat, it's been reported now that Max Crosby is expected to play in tomorrow's game. So he was nursing that ankle sprain, but sources say he is expected to play. So I'm curious to see here, Dylan, this that left side of the Raiders with that right side there for for Denver. So that would be your Max Crosby and your Palcho. And so that'll be a great matchup. I love what I'm seeing from Palcho. I think he is, I know when Mike McGlinchey gets back, probably gonna be inserted, but I think the Broncos should hold off a few games, quite honestly. Because I really think you don't want to disrupt the flow. I just feel as though Alex Palczewski has been playing so well, like he's been holding his own. In pass protection and in that running game. So it's going to be a difficult matchup. With Max Crosby, he's tough, man. Just his get off and then how they line him up sometimes. I know he can line up on the other side, right, left. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of where he is. But man, yeah, his get off and his motor, and he always registers a sack against the Broncos. It's one of those things where he always tries to get his against his division opponent. But we already know what Max Crosby is. I'm just curious to see, I know most times it's going to be against Palcho, but depending on who is his matchup, kind of see how they adjust and respond based on the type of athlete he is.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be probably the most important matchup on the offensive side, just because of, like you mentioned, he's a game wrecker. Crosby kills us every time. It sucks, and especially it's going to be a big test for Palczewski because no one's expecting it to be perfect, but if he can hold up decently well, obviously they're probably going to have Javonte in there to chip him
Yeah.
and all that, or tight end, whatever. That it could get ugly if Paczynski doesn't show up like he has these past couple games, because he's, like you mentioned, even when he's been left on an island one-on-one, he's done a solid job, and that's the best you could hope from a backup tackle. Tackle talent in the NFL is just very scarce. So hopefully Crosby can be contained to some extent, but you're never gonna completely eliminate him from the game.
Yes. Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Perusing the chat. There was one. Oh, here's one. We got Randy Peel from Facebook. Thank you, Randy. Says they aren't using Dulcich. I wonder if he's not completely back. Well, Randy, there have been balls thrown Dulcich's way. He just hasn't come down with them. That's the thing here with Dulcich. I mean, we saw that a few times when we went to the Steelers game, Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
Ball was perfectly thrown there. Dulcich just wasn't coming down with them. So you just wonder what is going on with Dulcich. I would like for them to promote Parham to the roster. I just think why'd you bring him? You brought him in here for a reason. And again, from what I've seen looking at some of that old Chargers film, like he's such a great weapon. Obviously in between the 20s, but you can definitely line him up quite well in the red zone packages for sure. He's a great, tall, lengthy red zone threat. So I would like for him to be promoted, Randy, and for him to get more usage. Not to say that, I still think Dulcich is good, but he's just not making the most of his opportunities. And he's not the best blocker. So it's like you kind of have to do something well to kind of get your opportunities. And if you're not the best blocker, and if you're dropping passes when they're thrown your way, then what use are you? So that's kind of what you're seeing here with Dulcich on the field. And I think, Dylan, if it gets to another few games where Dulcich is a no-show, I really think Peyton needs to consider doing what I just recommended. Getting Parham there out in the field. And then also, who knows what happens when it comes to the trade deadline. I know it's been talked about. I don't think it's going to happen now because I think Atlanta has started to use him more, especially we saw Thursday with Pitts.
Yeah.
But I was on the bandwagon for getting Pitts in Denver somehow. But maybe getting or looking at who's available there for trade at tight end, and maybe bringing that person in. But I still think the Broncos need an upgrade at tight end. And maybe Parham could be that guy, but he needs to be promoted to the active roster for us to really find out.
Yeah, tight end is easily the worst position for the Broncos on offense. And you mentioned Dulcich can't catch a cold, but he also can't even block a doorway. This dude's getting thrown around. I'm watching the All-22. I'm like, okay, and I was looking for him. I'm like, okay, where's he at? He's getting thrown around in the run game. When the ball does come his way, he drops it. Or even sometimes, he's getting a tight end screen, and it's like he's not going to really get too much out of that, especially with how the screen games have been going. But yeah, they need some juice at tight end, and obviously Troutman, he's just going to stick. He's Peyton's guy. Atkins has looked good in his role as fullback, tight end, whatever, he's hybrid role. And like you mentioned, Parham, he could be a lethal weapon in the red zone and even in blocking. There's a few names out there on the trade block, like you mentioned, Kyle Pitts. One, I think it could be more realistic. Maybe you could wrestle away Austin Hooper from the Patriots. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a solid move. Probably wouldn't cost much either, but obviously he's not like a superstar or anything, but he's an upgrade over, I don't know, probably every guy in that room.
For sure. Definitely.
So,
for sure.
There's definitely got to be some kind of move made, especially on the offensive side of the ball in terms of firepower. And if we can get a difference maker at tight end, like you mentioned, Kyle Pitts, I could see Sean Payton doing something with a guy like him and his talents. And I mean, he doesn't even have to line up at tight end all the time. You see him line up at receiver a
As a
plenty.
receiver.
So you could be a big wide receiver. So hopefully a move gets made there because, man, it's just abysmal.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Again, thank you, Randy, for coming in with that. We appreciate it. All right, let's see who else we have coming in. Looking here. Philip coming in says, if Riley Moss plays well, I think the Raiders will struggle. Yeah, I mean that's a good point there, Philip. I have the Raiders struggling regardless. I just think, yeah, this defense. I mean, I'll get to Riley Moss in a second, but this defense, especially this front, Dylan, it's just been so elite, so disruptive, and there may be a lot of times where Minshew's probably not going to have enough time to throw it. So I just think a lot of a lot of it starts at up front, Philip. That's what we're seeing with a lot of those packages, those creative blitzes, and those disguises that Vance Joseph is coming up with. And I think by itself, that's gonna cause me some problems. But yeah, I think your point is lost here when it comes to Raleigh Moss for me. I think Raleigh Moss is definitely a solid corner two. Um, he's been able to hold up his own in coverage. Very sticky. When it comes to jamming up these receivers, I like it. And if he can play well, right? If he can, there may be a few times and maybe line up against. They'll probably mix things, obviously, but maybe against the Trey Tucker and or Brock Bowers, you might see him. And if he can hold his own with his matchup, Philip, yeah, I mean, the Raiders will even struggle more. So, but yeah, I think the point is taken here with just Riley Moss and how much of a great player, what he's done these past few games, what much of a great player he's been, at least so far in the secondary for the Broncos.
Yeah, and even just in general, this secondary allows this defense to blitz as much as they do just because of how good they are covering, and Riley Moss is a big part of that. Denver probably has the best corner trio in the NFL with McMillan, Moss, and Surtain. Like that, those are some hard guys to throw at, and just being able to have that freedom to blitz a PJ Locke, to blitz. I was going to say Singleton, he's out, but a Cody Barton or a Welch. Justin Sternat, he showed up. He looked fine. It's like we didn't miss a beat last week. It's super exciting to have this defense play as well as it has, and what's going to make them even better, they're going to have that hometown crowd noise behind them, especially coming off of 2 road wins where they were the underdogs. These fans are going to come with a fire, and that's only going to help the secondary. You're going to be hearing a lot of incomplete chants coming from a mile high.
Yes. Lots of incomplete chants, and we are ready for it. All righty. Again, thank you, Philip, for coming in. Let's see who else we have. Randy Peel coming back and says Sertan will mostly cover Bowers, according to Lammy. Okay. I can maybe see that at times. Again, I'm not. I know. Sertan usually covers, and I guess Bowers is maybe the top receiver there for the Raiders. So I can definitely see that. But there could also be times where he's there with Jacoby Myers there too. So I guess it just depends on what coverage for scheme Vance Joseph has been playing. But yeah, thank you for that there, Randy. All righty. Where are we with time? So we got 45 minutes. Okay. So we have um so I just want to wrap up here shortly. Let's just see before we get into um kind of some of the injury news and our predictions. Let's see who else we have here. All right. Looks like DB94 kind of put our prediction in the chat, but we'll get into that here shortly. All right, let's come through the chat, guys. Give us 1 second. Got William Catalano coming in. Thank you, William. Says Pookie better be on his A game and blocking. Yeah. Yes, William. He better be. Again, this, as we said with Max Crosby expected to play, he has to support. He has to come in and help. So I think that will be crucial, helping out Palczewski and then making sure that the mix is held up right. But yeah, gotta be. We don't want Max Crosby taking over this game because we know what that is. We know what that looks like, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. So
yeah, it's Max Crosby's going to be a handful, and Javonte's going to be a big part of what happens in terms of blocking him. And you might have to chip him with a tight end, a running back, and the offensive tackle's going to block him. It's going to be where the main focus is on Crosby there.
Yes, for sure. All right, Dylan. So I'm not seeing any more questions, so we can get into some of the injuries here. And then from there, we'll get into our predictions. So, injuries for the Broncos. Only person, and I think he's went to IR, Tyler Bidet. So obviously, put him IR, from that back, making sure that back. And there could be a issue where he's back sometime later in the season, perhaps. The Raiders injuries, they have quite it's pretty extensive here. Zamir White's out. Devonte Adams is out. Barry Munford Jr. is out. Let's see. I think that's Demarcus Richardson's out. And then there's like a few that are questionable. So McAllister's questionable. Dylan Parham's questionable, the right guard. We did say Max Crosby says questionable here, but again, like as we said, he is expected to play. Divine Diablo's questionable. So it's pretty extensive when it comes to who is out and or questionable for the Raiders. So they're very undermanned.
The biggest thing you see there is a lot of their offensive line. Their starter Thayer Mumford, he's out. Even their other tackle, Colton Miller, he's been pretty banged up. Their guards are all banged up. Broncos are going to feast, I think.
Yes. So again, this should be the perfect opportunity for the Broncos to stop this winning streak from the Raiders. All right, Dylan. So having said all that, let's get into some score predictions. So how do you have this game shaking out tomorrow?
Well, I have confidence in the Broncos again. I think, like the header on the show says, are the stars aligning for a Bo Nix breakout? And I think so. And so I have the Broncos winning 28-10, and I think Bo rushes and throws for a touchdown. Hopefully we see that mix it up because his legs, those are a weapon too. We've seen it plenty of times just through these 4 games. But yeah, I think the Broncos have all the momentum and they need to keep it rolling if they want to win against the Chargers, Panthers, Saints, and so on. And like you mentioned earlier in the show, the Chiefs are faltering a little bit. They're banged up. They're injured. This is the time to stack wins and take advantage of the situation that's in front of you, and the Broncos will start that tomorrow.
I like it. Yeah, so for me, this Raiders team, again, there are a lot of injuries. A lot of people are out. They're very undermanned. So with that, the Broncos should, you know, win this game, guys. I don't think this is. Um, yeah, I think given this version of the Raiders, it's plenty of opportunities for the Broncos to cash in. I do have Knicks with 3 total touchdowns. I do have one rushing, two in the air. Um,
I like it.
and then a Lutz field goal as well. So, expect the Broncos to, again, get that passing game going, you know, having some good runs with McLaughlin and Pookie. I think this will be a good showing on offense, and even a better step forward for Bo Nix. So with that, I have my prediction of 20 score of 24 for the Denver Broncos and 9 for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Love it.
All righty. All right. Let's see. Doing the quick pulse check to see if we missed anything before we get out of here. I think we've captured everyone. Dylan?
Looks like it.
All right. So again, thank you everyone for joining us for tonight's discussion. We greatly appreciate it. If you guys have not done so already, make sure you subscribe to the Mile High channel. It really helps us and supports us as well. So we greatly appreciate that. And if you guys have not done so already, make sure you follow us on X. I am at Ron White NFL. My partner in crime is at Dylan Vaughn Arts, MHH. And if you have any question, comments as it relates to Broncos football, please tag us and we will comment and respond accordingly. Before we get out of here, Dylan has a few names I'd like to call out for some support that we really appreciate. So I'll let you take it away, Dylan.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. I'm looking at the ticker right now. We're pushing past 300 people watching concurrently.
Yes.
That's just amazing, especially on a Saturday night. We know that's the night to go out party, have fun with your friends, and
watch football.
And watch college football. And you're here with us, and that means so much. And I want to give a special shout out to some of our super chat superstars from tonight. David McGillrath coming in at the top of the show. Thank you, David. And DB94, thank you too so much for showing us just a little extra love, and we greatly appreciate it.
Yes, guys, again, thank you all for joining us tonight. And we hope that you guys enjoy the game tomorrow, and hopefully at the end of it, it will be a Broncos victory. Until next week, we will talk to you all later. Have a great rest of your evening, and go Broncos.
Go Broncos.